Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters. Today is a special episode, and we go live usually every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, unless I have a special guest on or I'm traveling. And the travel schedule is going to be picking up, but you guys can find out our schedule every single day, every single week, Coffee with the Critters, by right here on the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook page. If you go look to the left, you'll see events. And as we start scheduling each topic for Coffee with the Critters, you will see it show up there. So you can also pay attention to our times. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. You can also pay attention because sometimes we do go on at different times. Today is one of those times, and that's because I'm getting ready to introduce to you Dr. Amanda Kelly, and she is in Hawaii, and she is 6 hours behind us, so I definitely wanted to accommodate her schedule. And Barbara says, aloha. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Adrian. Hey, everybody. So let's go ahead and get started. And hey, Diane. Hey, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. But for those of you that are new that may not know who I am, my name is Laura Joseph. I'm the owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We are an international educational center where we teach people across the world about living, loving, and learning with animals using applied behavior analysis and positive reinforcement. Hey, Storm. And we do that through our live stream, our live stream memberships and projects. You can find out more about that on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. So without further ado, I am going to bring in Dr. Amanda Kelly. There she is. I was like, please work. So here she is. This is Dr. Amanda Kelly. Thank you so much for coming on with us. I really appreciate it.
Aloha. No problem. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we're getting a bunch of people joining. And I had first found out about you. I'm going to introduce you, but I first found out, I don't even know how I first came about you. I think it was probably Googling applied behavior analysis because I knew about you and was familiar with your work before I met Joel Vidovic. But my last live stream, Joel's been on here with us a couple of times. One was about a month or two ago, and that's when he's like, you know who you should have on here? Amanda Kelly. And I said, I'm almost afraid to reach out to her. But you were very receptive, and I thank you for that.
Of course, definitely don't be afraid.
So let's go ahead and let me introduce Dr. Kelly. Dr. Kelly has a PhD in behavior analysis, a Bachelor of Arts in elementary education, or an elementary educational background, and with the Hawaii Licensed Board Behavior Analyst. Did I say all that correctly?
Yes, licensed behavior analyst. There you go, licensed behavior analyst.
Licensed behavior analyst. And Dr. Kelly, you have written, I went on your website and looked through, you've written numerous publications. Isn't there one particularly on social media?
Yes, we have one on the ethics of social media and how to maximize the tools that we have with social media and how to still remain professional. And something like this is an excellent opportunity because you get to connect with people across geographic barriers such as an ocean, and so it's a wonderful opportunity. So we talk about that in the article, as well. It's called Blurred Lines because that song was popular that year.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast as well, and you talking about that. So you have numerous different publications and you've also been invited to present at numerous conferences around the world. I was looking at the long list of conferences you've presented at. But people can find out more about those presentations and articles, articles you've written, papers you've written on your website, correct?
Yes, yeah. I host at this point almost all of my PowerPoints, and sometimes I just start to live record if I'm doing webinars. And I try to make as much of the information, the basics of behavior analysis, I think should be available to everybody. And so that's sort of my goal with Behavior Babe. And there are branches on sustainability, animal applications, obviously focus on autism resources. And it's really grown over the years. So that's where you can go and find me and find probably a lot about behavior analysis.
Sure. And I've been to your website several different times, and I highly suggest anybody who wants to know more about you and really understand more about behavior analysis, go take a look at our website. You have webinars on there. I've watched several of your webinars already, and you're also known as the Behavior Babe. I think that may have been how I first came across you, because I was Googling articles in applied behavior analysis, and I was like, who is this Behavior Babe? Actually, now that I'm talking about that, I think that's how I found out about you. But Behavior Babe is, you're a public figure ethically advocating for the accurate application and dissemination of behavior analysis.
Yeah, it's a pretty long tagline. The joke is, when I started the website, it was originally labeled ABA for Applied Behavior Analysis, MA for Massachusetts, which is where I was living. And I was created it to help teachers who needed access to materials, and I started putting it there and giving them a login for it, teachers I was consulting with. And, over time, it started to generate a place for me to have resources and conversations. But ABA, MA also is very close to Obama. It was Obama, and it was the year, it was like 2008. And so I was like getting a lot of traffic for people looking for, information about Barack Obama and President Obama. And so I decided I need to have a more memorable way to remember the website, because I would tell people, go to abama.webs.com. You can't remember that. So we were going to go to ABAI, the international conference that we have every Memorial Day, which is actually, so it's coming up this weekend, next weekend. And everyone had a tagline. Social media was really getting popular in 2009. So there was misbehavior, and I was like, oh, I love that. And then just a lot of really genius names. And I was like, behavior woman, behavior person, behavior girl. And I just like alliteration. And then I was like, Behavior Babe. And I never thought it was going to take off into something that it has. And I think if I had tried to create it on purpose, I'm not sure it would have ended up where we're at now. It's been a pretty interesting but organic journey. But Behavior Babe is memorable. For some people, it can be controversial. They're like, where's the science here? That's a cartoon. But it's memorable. And that, I think, is a key to success with any online or in-person marketing, right?
Yep. It's catchy. You don't forget it. And actually, I think I was at ABAI last year in Denver and watched one of your live streams where everybody got stuck in the elevator.
Yes, it was like a live Skinner box too, because they were saying, press this button, try your card, all this superstitious behavior that you can see, from animals in cages and boxes and people in an elevator. So it was about 22 people for 22 minutes. And I would be taking the stairs a lot more this year at ABI.
So we have a lot of different things we want to talk about today, and where this can go. This is what I like to do. I don't like to plan a lot of things beforehand, because I just want it to be real and take it where the conversation goes. But I know that how you've lived in Hawaii. You live in Hawaii. Yeah. And I know that I've gone to your Facebook page and I see all your pictures of the sunset or the sunsets, and you just said that it's pretty. You're pretty excited about right now because you haven't seen it in a couple of months. I can tell you're very environmentally aware, very environmentally friendly. You want people to be very environmentally conscious. Is that what took you to Hawaii?
When I told people I was moving to Hawaii, a lot of them said, of course you are. And I was surprised by that reaction. I'm like, what do you mean? I've never mentioned Hawaii before in my life. And they were like, yeah, but the things that you like, maybe we can see embodied in Hawaii. Like you want a hammock, you like to be outside. I would have never considered myself a beach person, but I guess I'm not a hassle kind of person. I don't like packing things up, forgetting something, having to go back home, the sand everywhere. But now that I live across the street, I'm very much a beach person. So it's a response effort, which is an interesting connection. But when I was growing up, my parents bought me this book. I was like 5, 6 years old maybe. And it was like the 100 ways you could save the earth today. And I used to walk around and shut the water off when people were brushing their teeth in the house, and I would close the fridge if they had left it open. And so my parents, when I told them I was moving to Hawaii, they're like, that makes sense to us too. They're like, we could see you enjoying your time there. And also I wanted to come where they needed behavior analysts and where support could be useful. And we worked a lot on autism insurance and licensure and legislation. And it's really rewarding, but really exhausting. And so I tried to immerse myself in volunteering with like the Monk Seal Foundation, helping out with turtles so people don't sit and touch on the turtles, and kind of protecting the wildlife. And it just smacks you in the face in Hawaii. So there's other places that are incredible and beautiful, and they have animals and nature, and it's awesome. For me, that place is here. And it's really made me not just appreciate it, but I feel responsible for my part with it. And what's happening here in Hawaii is that trash is showing up on the shores. And at first I thought, who's leaving all this trash on the beach? Like, why are we doing that? Like, maybe we need trash cans or something simple. And then I realized, I was horrified when I realized it was arriving here from the ocean. And, my mom asked me recently, like, well, who keeps putting it in the ocean? And I said, well, in some indirect way or direct way, all of us, it goes into the air, into the earth, or into the ocean. And I was picking up trash every day, small bits of trash. And I realized I was just putting it back in the trash or recycling it. And then I thought, this is a vicious cycle. So maybe we should work on looking at reducing consumption if it's still a problem after we have single-use items. So,
yeah, because I was listening to a podcast somebody was interviewing you on, and I mean, you're the one that made me more environmentally aware with your No Straw for Me campaign. But then, I mean, I know you and I were just talking about this right before this live stream. And it starts off with one straw, two straws, but what your campaign has done for me, and this is what I do for a living every single day, 14 hours a day, is I work with animals and change behavior with an array of different animals. But you made me more aware of being environmentally friendly through the use or lack of our plastic products. And in particular, so it started with straws. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? But then you also go into single-use plastic items versus, do you want to say anything about that? Because it's...
Yeah, of course. I was picking up mostly straws, to be honest, and bottle caps and dental floss, individual flossing sticks. And then I started to see toothbrushes. And I started to wonder what all those things had in common. And I started, I went online and I did some research. A quick Google search will show you that there was different campaigns, different things, but I didn't really get into the campaigns. I was just like, why straws? And I guess the answer is because those things go through catchers like this, and what fits through something like that is a pencil or straw shaped. And all of those things, like a toothbrush, are the same shape. So it's not that we're intentionally in some places dumping these items into the ocean. It's that they're not getting caught through catchers. And so we have this idea that when we take in an item and then we dispose of it properly, that it's going to then, be awesome for the earth or be less aversive. And I'm not an extremist. And so I thought, there's so much that needs to be changed, and it feels overwhelming. And I was just trying to get away from being overwhelmed with legislation on other issues. So I thought, well, what would I do if I was consulting with a client as a behavior analyst? And the answer is I would tell them to pick one behavior and pick one that you think you can change kind of easily. So I thought, I don't use a lot of straws, and then I started taking data, and I realized that you get straws you don't even think that you're using. So you walk into a restaurant, there's water and there's a straw in it. You get a small cocktail and there's those two little stirry straws that you can't actually drink anything through. So right. Just find something else to stir that with. But yeah, we were talking about sort of starting with straws, and where it's led me is just, it's an awareness. I slow down more, which is really interesting because I moved here from Boston and the idea was to come to Hawaii and slow down. And my mom jokes that I sped everybody up instead. But this is a really neat way. Like, I'm not really driving through drive-throughs right now. Um, we don't have a lot of those here anyhow in Hawaii. But take a few more minutes, go inside so that you can bring your own cup, or say, I don't need that straw, or I don't need that lid. And so it started with straws, and then it moved to lids, and then it moved to containers. And we already have a plastic bag ban in Hawaii. So I never come into contact with plastic bags. I have reusable bags. It's no problem to change that behavior.
And we have plastic bags all over here. At least now they're starting to ask paper or plastic, but that's how far behind we are.
You know, we used to do everything in paper and glass, and it was, you had to wash it. It could break, it could rip, right? It gets wet when you're carrying groceries. It's not as durable as plastic. But the mistake that I think that we didn't necessarily intentionally make, but we're just a part of, really, is that we are so many items that we cannot just dispose of. They're made to be indestructible, which is what we like about them. So if they're indestructible, then we need to reserve items that may require that material for non-single-use items. And then I started thinking about, what about paper straws? What about other things like that? And it's like, a paper straw still is leading to destroying a forest or natural habitats to use the trees to create the paper. I suppose we could recycle materials, but you can only do that so many times. I think 11 times is what you could recycle, like a plastic bottle or something like that. So I started becoming more and more aware of single-use items, of looking at plastic bottles, but the bags just became like automatic thing. I didn't have to make that choice. And what I think happens is I travel another place and someone just gives me a bag with my stuff. Now I've gotten really good at saying I have my own bag, but that's because I keep traveling. Yes, so Lori's saying that California charges for plastic bags. There is one place here on the island where you can get a plastic bag, and it's like on the military installation or at Walmart. And they have thicker bags, and they're considered non-single use, so that they want you to use them multiple times. But they charge 10 cents, and that's not going to inconvenience or really incentivize anybody, I don't think. Because 10 cents, I'm like, just you don't see it on your bill. But it's a step in the right direction, and it's definitely a consideration of behavior analytic principles. So with the no straw, what I ended up doing was making a group. I thought, if I want to do this, maybe somebody else wants to do this. And I had a really good friend, and her name's Laura, spelled the same way. And I said, Laura, do you think anyone would want to be in this group? And she said, you know how many people it takes to make a group, Amanda? 2 people, and I'll join with you. We now have close to 500 people in this group a year and a half later. Yes, it's the Facebook group. So it's #NoStrawForMe. Anybody can join. You don't have to be a behavior analyst, but it originally started as a place for, I'm going to be talking about it from a behavior analytic way. So if you join the group, realize I'm going to be teaching and talking about the science of behavior change in my posts. But we're also, anybody's welcome to be there. And people are coming up with so many ideas and suggestions. And when you can change one behavior and really get it in your repertoire, and you can think of other behaviors that we would call a response class or in that same class, you can really start to get generalized behavior across a lot of skills with relatively little effort once you make that first habit, Mm-hmm. So my first week of tracking, I got 5 straws. I was horrified. But now I'm at a point a year and a half where it's 22, so only 17 since that point.
Yeah. I'm getting it. Sorry. Give me 2 seconds. What I was going to say, sorry, once in a while we get this annoying feedback, and usually just an earbud will take care of it. So I've already heard it being eliminated. But I wanted to say is your No Straw for Me campaign got me more aware of everything else that we're using. And like you were saying, you were walking down I think it was in the podcast I was listening to, you were walking down the beach when you first moved to Hawaii and thought, why is everybody throwing their trash out? But that's not what was really happening. Well, not in the sense, everybody,
directly.
Do you want to go ahead and take it from there so I don't screw it up?
No, you got it. It's just not directly. It's not like the people who've left it that day at the beach. Sometimes we'll see that. Can you hear me? I put my headset in. Okay,
Yep.
good. We recently, or in the fall, I did a beach cleanup, and I mean, we're doing beach cleanups all the time. But we did a beach cleanup at a protected reserve, and we had an escort to be back there, and there was about 150 people who came. And what we did was we spent an hour and a half collecting trash on this beach, and it's protected. You can't be there. No, there's no humans who live there. And I think I experienced what it was like to have a panic attack. I literally saw bits and pieces of the sand that were blue and white pieces of plastic. I saw dead fish on the beach. This is where turtles come and try to have their hatchlings. And was I was just consumed with how bad it is, how bad it's become. And when you think of a place as beautiful and as protected and as it's not ours to mess up, is really kind of where I felt. And we had filled a tractor trailer full of trash in an hour and a half. And that was one day. And it's like that almost every weekend.
Yeah. So many other things besides humans are paying the price for our convenience.
You see pictures and you can see how horrible it is. And I think that really compels to people's compassion. I don't think anyone's intentionally saying, let's harm the earth, let's hurt ourselves, let's not take care of animals. I don't get that sense. I tend to believe that people are generally good, or if their environments are conducive to them being so, I suppose. And I thought about all of the things that I had done, and I considered myself at least environmentally aware, and I could just do better. And I thought, how can I do better without feeling overwhelmed? And that's where it started. But now I have a shampoo bar, I have replaceable stasher bags instead of Ziploc bags, I have a bamboo toothbrush, and again, it just became easy. And I tell people, pick what's relevant to you. If it's not straws, maybe it's your coffee cup. If it's not your coffee cup, maybe it's your soda bottles. If it's not your soda bottles, maybe it is your trash bags. Toilet paper comes wrapped in plastic. Paper towels. There's actually a company called Who Gives a Crap, and it comes wrapped in paper. And I think that's an amazing step in the right direction.
I'm going to have to write that down.
And they don't ship to Hawaii. And shipping is another thing. When I think about being local. So again, I see people who are here, we're in Ohio and different locations on the mainland, what we would refer to it as. I just was in Kentucky, and everyone drinks a lot of bourbon there. And so you get those two little stirry straws. So I went around and tried to educate some of the bartenders. And I have found people are really receptive. It's an educational campaign. And I take the approach, as we do with everything in behavior analysis, that you are going to start positive, right? Like, okay, I've seen horrific things, and I would like to stop that. But I also like to take pictures of the clean beach and show people what I'm seeing, or restaurants that are saying like, hey, we're doing this upon request, or places that are giving larger incentives for bringing your own containers. And you don't have to care about the earth to save it, but it helps. And so I think we can use behavior analysis to set up the environment where people will change their behavior. Hey, put it here and it spits out a token, or hey, try this. Or if you want this straw, it costs you 25 cents. And you just change the effort and add in thought, a delay, mindfulness, I guess, and behavior changes.
Well, maybe it starts with the straw, obviously. That's why, but something also I just want to say, that even like since I started following your No Straw for Me campaign, when I go places, it's like automatic that they stick straws in there. So now I don't want to say it's automatic because it's not, I'm thinking about it. But when I go in and order a drink, I will say no straws for me. Thank you, please. And then Dr. Kelly, almost, I would say every other time or every third time, now I'm starting to do it more, but I say, do you know why I say that? And then that's an opportunity for me to educate the person who's not even thinking about sticking that straw in the glass.
Yeah. I originally made stickers, and I put them on the back of a cell phone. Everyone has their cell phones out, whether we should or shouldn't, when we're out eating and dining. And So I put it on the back of the phone so that if it was face down, you would see this sticker. And a lot of times people would say, what does that say? And it was it wasn't intentional, but the font was a little bit weird. So people are like, what does that say? And I would say, oh gosh, no straw. Hey, can you remember no straw in my cup? And actually I have a sticker for you. And I tried to do that, and I thought this is going to be really effective. And it was effective in reminding me, and it was great where my friends put it on their hydro flask and it reminded them. But what I found ended up being more effective, interestingly enough, were bracelets. So I had bracelets made, and they say no straw for me, and they say behaviorbabe.com. They are made of material that has been recycled. They can be recycled, but I could still probably find a better material moving forward. But I give them now to the waiter or the waitress. Sometimes I'll talk to the hostess or the bartender. You gotta think who's actually making your drink.
Sure.
That's where the sabotage happens. I call it. I sing the Beastie Boys song sometimes. I'm like, listen, all y'all, it's a sabotage. Because even if you're trying, other people's behavior impacts yours. And so when I give these to people who are waiters and waitresses, and many of them are now in the No Straw for Me group. And that's really cool because I travel all over. Like you said, I get invited to sing Canada, Kentucky, California, and I picked up or handed out a ton of bracelets along the way. And for me, it's maybe a few $100s to buy these bracelets every now and again. And it's totally worth it because if one bracelet saves 10 straws, we're moving on. And then I tell them, pass it on. When you feel like you don't need it anymore, give it to somebody else.
Right. Where do people find those bracelets?
I have them pretty much. You have to come see me talk somewhere. Occasionally, I tell people they can email me because I was mailing them, which is still an option. So, like $1 or $2 or something. My email is behaviorbabe@yahoo.com. If anyone's interested, you're right on it. Look at that. Yeah. And I have found people, it depends on your environment, and you can create an environment where if you're not punitive about things and you just remind people, like, hey, thanks for shutting the fridge so quickly, or, oh, you know what? Oh, she's like, I'm sorry, I forgot I brought you a straw. And I'll say, but thanks for remembering once you got it to the table, but I'm going to reuse this one all night long. So if you can, I'll order another drink and give you another chance, I tell the waitress. And then you just kind of smile about it. I walk now into any restaurant, but I live in a small town. So mind you, maybe 4,000 people. And they'll say, oh, hey, it's Amanda, or hey, no straw for me, girl, or hey, no straw for you. And it's a small town where they'll end up working at different, seasonal places. So sometimes I can just, like Vanessa at Hollywood Joe's has worked at 6 other restaurants. And so she knows me no matter where I go and tells her coworkers. And it's this whole, network of people who are now becoming aware and talking about it. Mm-hmm. And in that group, we talk about response effort, matching law. You allocate your behavior to where you're going to get the incentive or the payout, if it's too hard and too little of an outcome.
And that's all in the Facebook group?
A lot of it is in the Facebook group. Yes. So you can just find it by going #NoStrawForMe on Facebook. I also have a behaviorbabe.com page dedicated for anyone who's not on Facebook. If they want to learn about it. It's definitely, like I said, it's almost like Behavior Babe itself. It was just an idea. It was just this one thing. And I thought maybe other people want to try this too. And so, like I said, we talk about those behavioral principles, and then we think about what are the barriers, right? What are the barriers? I did a presentation in St. Louis on this topic in September. It was a autism conference. And they said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, straws and saving the world, and animal, it's making sure that the most vulnerable, essentially, this is the connection I see to the populations I work with and care about, that they are protected, and that we don't do anything to make it better than when you arrived. Always make the world a better place, kind of thing. And it's really neat and inspiring to find groups of people who do that with you, and people go like, oh wow, that's a good reason, or I want to do that too. And then you end up with a lot of like-minded people encouraging you. But when I was in St. Louis, what I spoke about was going through this self-management behavior change program. It taught me a lot about being a consultant. Like, you can want to change your behavior and still not succeed. You could have a perfect behavior plan and someone else sabotaged, your attempts. And so I gave the talk on how changing my own behavior helped me become a better consultant. And I think it just, again, makes us reflective. So
sure.
I encourage people to try changing something in your own lives, whatever it is, because it's a humbling experience.
Yeah, I'm really excited about you using ABA in the No Straw for Me campaign. Just um, coming up with the assessments on why is this happening? Where can I start shaping change? That's exciting to me. So if anybody wants to fine tune their skills, head over there. Yeah, but I just something that made me think. I used ABA to help introduce. I know the first time I gave a public presentation, I was so nervous and scared beyond the belief that I couldn't effectively communicate what I was trying to say. So I was like, identify the reinforcer. Why am I so nervous? I have no problem talking to somebody one to one, but when it's 500 to 1, yeah, I was easily flooded. Yeah. So I was just like, it's because the reinforcer for my nervousness was everybody staring at me. So I created presentations where they couldn't stare at me, or found something more interesting to look at, which was, who doesn't like to watch pictures of parrots flying around on a big screen? So once I looked up and saw everybody paying attention to my presentation, I was just like, now I can talk. And then I just thoroughly shaped that over time. So now I sometimes don't have a problem with it.
It's a good way. You got to practice repeated opportunities. Are you familiar with Amy Sutherland's book? What I learned, what Shamu taught me about life, love, and marriage is what it's called. Yeah, and she was or is an animal trainer, and essentially her point was, how come I can help these large animals learn to do things and get access to their medical care, but my husband can't put his dishes in the sink, or my son won't put his clothes in the hamper? And I think the realization and my takeaway from her, she has an article, but also from her book, is that we have the tools of behavior change. Let's apply them to the things that matter to us as well. And it's not a manipulation. It's just an evaluation of environmental stimuli and conditions, right? So for you had to increase the reinforcer. You had to remove, or it was a negative reinforcer in some ways, the removal of everyone's eyes on you. But then you had the replacement. And so it's here, project here instead. And when we think about the behavioral principles, it starts to, for me, it helps take away sort of the subjectivity, and I can be a little bit more objective, and then I can develop something that even for myself helps me achieve that change. So
with you, I'm going to look up that book. And for those watching this replay, as Dr. Kelly and I talk about different things, I'll put the links in. And Dr. Kelly, you feel free to go back through after this is over as well, if you want. But I know that, there's certain things I'm not going to tell my animals not to do something, because I know when reinforcing to do alternate behaviors is more powerful and they learn quicker. But then I'd come in the house and I'd see my husband doing something and I'd be like, ugh. And then I can just see, like a dog, his ears go down, so I'm just like, pretend like he's a big bird. How would you modify this behavior?
I think that's exactly her point. Exactly her point. Yesterday, I had a friend over, and it was the fridge being open, and they were cooking. And so I didn't want to criticize somebody coming over and cooking. Like, please go right ahead. Thank you. But the fridge kept being hung open for like a long period of time. And I'd walk over and I'd like close the fridge, and then I'd close the fridge. And finally I'd go, can you close the fridge? Because this is actually one of the most wasteful things that we do. And it's a simple way to change our footprint. It's a simple way that, it's not overwhelming. And then I realized I felt like I was being aversive. They weren't annoyed with me. They still kept cooking. And then the first time that they shut the fridge immediately, I said, hey, thanks for remembering to shut the fridge. And I have to remind myself the patience and the positivity that all people require, right? And again, you are one of a behavior analyst who I highly admire and respect is Jessica Minahan, and she works a lot with anxiety. And she says, you're 50% of every interaction that you're in. So if something isn't going well, if you have that expression or feeling, think to yourself, what can I do to change this environment? What can I do to shape that up? And sometimes it's just waiting for the first time they do it to say, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
And hopefully that thanks or acknowledgement is a reinforcer. Time will tell, right, for the individual.
Yeah, and that applies in the animal behavior and training world, so much so that a lot of people forget about their approach. And you see this on social media, Facebook, everywhere. Um, People criticizing approach, or people implementing ways of training that they're only doing what they know.
Mm-hmm.
So if they come into the group and people automatically, you cannot do that. I mean, a lot of times it punishes their behavior of coming back to the group.
Exactly.
We had a girl walk in here that came here for training, and she's like, I want to be a professional bird trainer. And I said, okay, let's start working. And then she started talking to me about how she has a shock collar on her Great Dane. And so, I mean, in my head, it was like, boom, but then I just turned around and I said, oh yeah, how's that working? And she told me, and I said, she's like, well, I'm trying to get it so he doesn't pull so much on the leash. And I said, is the pulling on the leash going down? She's, no, actually it's getting stronger. And I said, come here, let's train the fish and let me show you alternate ways that are probably going to work better for you. And my reinforcer was 2 months later. She came back, and we had been discussing back and forth about training different animals, but she came back and said, she showed me a video, and I actually sat down and cried because I wasn't sure if she was going to continue her work with her Great Dane, but it was a video of her Great Dane walking loosely on a leash beside her with no collar and a harness.
The power of that kind of change is incredible. Sometimes it's so delayed. And that's another thing for us to think about when we are trying to change our own behavior or other people's behavior, is that if things are delayed, then we have to be able to hang on and wait a little bit. Some delay discounting. Dr. Aubrey Daniels has an analysis called the picnic analysis. And I love it because picnics at the beach sound pretty neat to me. But the picnic analysis stands for positive, immediate, and certain, or negative, immediate, and certain. And the opposite would be positive, delayed, and uncertain, or negative, delayed, and uncertain. And what his hypothesis and what the science shows us is that when things are immediate and positive and reliable, they change behavior. So if I know that I'm going to go to the bakery down the road, I bring my own container, I get a free cookie every time. That's desired. It increases my behavior. It's reinforcing. It's immediate. And every time they give it to me, I've done it a few times, so it's pretty certain. So that pick is going to increase me bringing my reusable container more than you telling me, if you don't, your plastic is going to kill a dolphin. Because it's highly unlikely. And even if it does happen, it's delayed. And it's uncertain and it's negative. So again, and I start to think about that, he's a systems, organizational behavior management change focus expert. And I think about it, though, as even with why people, quit smoking. You and I were talking about cigarette butts and animal interactions there, right?
Yeah.
So the crows, you want to talk about that a little bit? I think that's a really interesting perspective.
Sure. Yeah. A couple of months ago, somebody had posted on my Facebook page, Laura, what are your thoughts on this? And it was a thought out plan about crows picking up cigarette butts to help eliminate waste. And I said, how does that affect or modify the behavior of the people throwing out the cigarette butts? And some things you could get are people throwing out cigarette butts. It could reinforce their behavior of throwing out the cigarette butts for numerous reasons. I don't have to worry about it. The crow's going to pick it up. Or I haven't seen a crow in close proximity, so watch me throw out a cigarette butt.
Yeah, it also reminded me of a story my high school math teacher told me. And he said, he was telling us a story about why there were so much like roadkill in a particular area near our high school. And he said that's because it's where the teens go and like they smoke their cigarettes when they're not supposed to at the edge of the campus, and they flick them into the road. And these animals were coming out and like eating them, thinking that they were food. And then eventually the ones who didn't get hit by cars were becoming like addicted to nicotine. And they're like, so, and then people were interested in that. And I don't know if that happened or if that was true or what have you, but it did make sense. And it could logically be increasing other behaviors. And I one of the beauties of behavior analysis to me, and you said it so nicely, is, you know, how's that working out for you? Is it increasing or decreasing? Is a little bit more of an objective way to look at the effect. I've had people ask me, is this a good or bad way to do something? And I'll say, is it effective or ineffective? Is it positive or negative? You know, is it desired or undesired? And that is a really great way to have, I think, entry language to people, for people who aren't behavior analysts, or who are just like you said with this woman. You could have easily been like, oh, eek, what are you doing? And that could still have been your reaction. But instead you paused and assessed and thought, okay, how could I maybe change this conversation to get her to a place where she's willing to consider an alternative approach? Yeah. And then once she did, it was so powerful. So even though it was delayed, it was very positive, and it was uncertain. So it had to have been real strong to maintain that behavior. But another part of a connection I think of with the crows is, whose behavior are we talking about, right? So the crows may be picking up this and doing that, but like you said, we need to be changing the individuals who are just, you know, leaving them on the ground. And we could then have that unintended effect of like, let's do this because now it's a game. And then we do see in all levels, you know, in the animal world and the applied situations, where you end up with unintended consequences. And so I think this is always those important discussions to have when we're talking about shaping and chaining and training behavior.
Yeah. Behavior's always happening. And like I often say to people, you know, how you approach the situation may reinforce it, may reinforce it in ways you want or you don't want. So I just tell people, you know, what's the end goal? What do you want? And is that actually getting? And a lot of times there's certain things I want to say, but what I do is I choose to sit and think about it, identify, do I want this behavior to change? How important is this to me or to the animals?
Yeah, you know, with the whole straw campaign, it's wonderful that people are joining me, and I love to hear that people are aware and they're sharing posts, and that's incentivizing me and reinforcing my behavior of having the public group and things like that. But, you know, I feel like in these ways it was a self-change project. So I would tell people, like, this is what I'm trying to do for me, and if you want to join, awesome. But it took out the responsibility of me criticizing people or feeling critical of their choices. Now that people are super aware, sometimes I'll be like, hey, next time say no straw for me. But that's a little bit more improved of me being like, oh my gosh, look at all the straws. And so, the humanity, as Matt Sikoria said when we were in Las Vegas at a conference, there were more straws on that table at dinner than I had accumulated in a year and a half. And that's where I think about change and policy, where they intersect. Because I do feel like if you just ban something, people change that behavior, and we want generality to generalize. At the same time, look how mindful I've been, or I'm trying to be, and the people in the group are trying to be. And yet, like you said, sometimes it's automatic, right? Sometimes people are just putting things in out of habit, habituation. And so it's, how do we change that? And I think that that's a culture change. And I think people have to sometimes contact it. And I get to contact it, and I have a network, and I'm on social media. So let me share with people what I'm contacting is kind of my thought. And I know I mentioned to you last month, I was in California in Ventura, and we got to the beach, and there was a foul odor, and we were like, oh, what is that smell? And more disgusting than the smell was the sight of a dolphin that was on the beach that had passed, deceased, and there was literally plastic hanging out of its mouth. So when people know better, they do better. You know, I saw that, and definitely, and it's on your page, and it's a great, you know, slogan and thing to say. And so, again, it's sometimes those are not positive, they are negative, but they are powerful. And I took it as a reminder to try to do more. But don't beat yourself up for not being perfect, because I feel like if people do that and they don't have a relapse plan, they're willing to just sometimes say, I tried, and walk away from it. So we're imperfect. And so we just have to keep practicing with things, you know?
Sure. We're only human, right? And a lot of times telling people not to do something, I'm just thinking about this because this happens so much with the animals, telling people not to do something if it doesn't necessarily, a lot of times it just teaches them to be trickier about doing it a different way.
Well, interesting that you would say that. So Hawaii had proposed a straw ban. And again, it's not just about straws, but this story is, I suppose. And there were restaurants who were adamantly against it. And they were like, no, because if you start telling us what we can and can't sell or what we have to use in our materials, you're going to then come in and start regulating every aspect of the restaurant industry. And our legislators were like, well, we have a bill and we're going to see if it advances. And what happened was voluntarily 400 restaurants removed plastic and single-use straws. Why? Because they didn't want to mandate. And so, yeah, you could get sneakier about it, or you could just say, like, look, let's not have us tell you what to do. How about you just decide what you're willing to do? And so for them, it was the removal of the threat of mandates, right? So it's a negative reinforcer that still led to them. So you don't have to care about, again, the world to save it. It helps if you do. For there, they just didn't want regulations in their restaurant, perhaps. And it still led to positive change.
Yeah. That made me think of what you and I were talking about before the live stream started. Do you mind me?
Of course not. Go for it.
The t-shirt that you told your mom about.
Oh, so this is Facebook always probably like tracking your ads and things like that. But I find it helpful. I'm not offended with the information they compile for me. And it came up on the side of like a shirt you might be interested, or these products you might care about. And I clicked on it and it resonated. And so I speak with my mom and my father a lot about these issues and things that are important to me. And they're incredibly supportive and try to be mindful themselves. But my mom was like, who's putting it all in the ocean? And the answer is, in some way we all are. And the shirt that I found said, the biggest threat to our planet is the belief that somebody else is going to save it. And I hope I hope it arrives before ABAI, before our conference this weekend. I like to wear either like the Beatles, Bob Marley like shirts, or shirts with slogans when I travel, because people either smile at you because you're dancing, or they're like, hey, what's that mean? Or they want to strike up a conversation. And I'm really sociable when I travel a lot. So it's where I'm going to meet a lot of my friends and people that I enjoy spending time with. And so, but I think that that's really powerful. And it's not that other people can't contribute or aren't going to be amazing or don't care. Again, it's not about lack of compassion. It's about lack of action, right? And so how do we say, I know you care, here's what I think you're able to do, or what are you thinking you're able to do? So my mom has, when she was visiting I don't want to pick on my mom, I should say my family when they were visiting, but I noticed there was a lot of plastic bottles to be recycled, and it stood out to me because I don't ever purchase anything in a plastic bottle. And so I was like, what do I do with all these plastic bottles? And I said to my mom recently, maybe you could work on eliminating some of the plastic bottles that you use. Get a larger plastic bottle for start. Like, just start small.
Sure.
Or go big, but start small. And I was like, I'll buy you a Soda Stream. And she was sort of like, oh, I really kind of like what I like, and I'll try something. And I said, how about this? How about if you just do an inventory for a week and find out where plastic's in your life, and see if you can select something that you think, I don't really use that much, and work on that instead. Because right now, what she gets from convenience and reinforcement from what she currently prefers is not something that I'm going to compete with, especially over the ocean, to try to achieve change. The motivation always matters, right? And making sure that we're working with people, or that people are working with what's important to them. So,
sure. Yeah. Dr. Kelly, a lot of people are making comments about the t-shirt. Now, is this something you just ordered for yourself, or is this something?
Yeah, but I can find a link and add it to the chat later, or put it up for you. I'm sure I can find it. I probably have it in my email.
Okay. I didn't know
or just
on your website.
No, I wish I had come up with that myself. No, but I didn't. I see in the comments too, people are saying things like, McDonald's is looking at going to paper straws, or Starbucks has got now a lip sort of strawless lid, and it's still plastic, or it's still a single-use item, but those are steps in the right direction. And as consumers start to place demands like that, they will acquiesce. They want customer satisfaction.
Yeah, just like people eating healthier. You'll see fast food chains starting to switch their food because as people are becoming more educated on the food they're eating, they're negatively reinforced into changing their menus.
Change, change is change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that being said, too, did you want to mention what just came out of the Plogging? Did you?
Yeah, I would love to. So today I'm actually starting a
You have
campaign.
to make sure to tell me how to spell that because I'm going to throw that up on the screen as you're
Sure.
talking.
It's Plogging, Plogging. And it's essentially jogging or walking fast if you want to walk and picking up trash along the way. And people are doing lunges and squats and they're getting a full core workout. So it's being touted as a really great way to get active if you're not already, or if you need to be more active like I am. Or need to, or striving to be, and you start to collect the trash that you get. And what I've asked people to do is I've moved beyond straws for myself, and I'm really trying to eliminate single-use plastic or plastic altogether. And so the hashtag that I'm using now is pickitplastic for this campaign as well. And so what I've asked people to do is go out on jogs and runs or walks or hikes and pick up your trash and take a photo of it. Wear gloves if you need to have gloves on or whatever. Stay safe. But I'm going to give out small prizes for somebody who's collected the most diverse amount of items on one hike. Now, you could make this up, but if you want to put trash in a bag and put it in the trash can and take a photo of it, I will send you a bracelet. It's not a big deal to me. I imagine most people are going to have really good intentions, integrity, and fidelity here. But we also have who got the most items in one particular day or week. And it's up to people to self-report. And what I think it's going to do is it's going to hopefully get us all out there moving around a little bit more, and then just looking at our environment. And once you start to look for in your environment, you start to see things everywhere. Yeah. And as you see it everywhere, you start to become aware. And if you start to get overwhelmed, just start with one thing. And so I thought this fun Plogging thing. So it's 1 month, and we're going to do weekly challenges, I guess. I'm not sure, just kind of. Somebody posted in the No Straw for Me group a video about Plogging, and then I thought, hey, let's blend these things together. So that's
I'm sorry.
No, it's a phenomena. That Plogging is its own phenomena, but then it got introduced to me in the No Straw group. So it's a great resource for people to share stuff like this. And then here we go, trying to make a new campaign.
So that's where people find more information, and sharing stories and pictures is on the No Straw for Me campaign.
The No Straw for Me, yeah, that's on the Facebook page. But if you're not on Facebook, you can go to behaviorbabe.com, and there's a Picket Plastic page that talks about it.
Okay.
What about a T-shirt that says "No Straw for Me"? Beth, that's a great suggestion. I'm definitely looking into that. Something else that I recently got, if for people who will be at ABAI, I have little pens, and they have a seahorse, holding a straw, and it says "No Straw for Me, Behavior Babe," and you can put them on your badges or on your bags, and maybe that's something that people would remember when they're out at a restaurant. And if we can get a waiter or waitress to wear them, people will say, "What does that say?" Yeah. And it starts the conversations. So it's all about starting the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're coming up on the hour, and I don't want to keep you because you're just getting your morning started.
Sunday morning.
Yeah. So I wanted to make just a couple of things. The No Straw for Me, here you're going to see me multitask, No Straw for Me campaign, and you can find that on Dr. Amanda Kelly's, this is on your Facebook page. Also, I wanted to put on here because I didn't show, going backwards. I wanted to show your Behavior Babe website, correct?
Yep, that's it.
All right. So these are the different ways you can find Dr. Amanda Kelly. And I just wanted to make sure there was nothing else. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to have these discussions. And like I said, if it's not straws, pick something for you. And if it's not for animals, then let it be for yourself. And if it's not for yourself, let it be for your future. There's different reasons and different motivations for people. And I think that we can still achieve collective change, and we can do so much more when we do it together. So this gives us an opportunity to find more people who want to join us. And I couldn't be happier about starting my week that way.
Yay. Yay. Well, I want to say thank you for coming on here with us. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And I'd love to someday meet you in person, maybe next year at ABAI. But yeah, for anybody who wants to get a hold of Dr. Kelly, you can reach her here at behaviorbabe@yahoo.com. And hopefully, I'd be very excited to see everybody on your No Straws for Me campaign page.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having at least a few more member requests today.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure you're going to get them. So thank you very much. If you just want to stick with me for another minute, I'm just going to wrap up the episode.
Sure.
We've been doing Coffee with the Critters every morning for the past 3 years. We're just evolving in our technology, and hopefully people stick with me on that. But next week, well, first I wanted to say tomorrow, for those of you that follow the work we do here at the center, you are probably very, thanks, Diane. Diane just said, I did a member request for No Straw for Me. Kudos. So those that follow the work that we do tomorrow, Rico, our umbrella cockatoo here, he has a large following. He will turn 15 years old. He's the bird I said, I hope we grow old together, and we are in the process of doing that. This will be my first time ever speaking publicly about the accident he had almost 4 years ago. That's going to be next week right here at 9 o'clock in the morning on Coffee with the Critters. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you, and we will see you next week. Dr. Kelly, thanks again. It was great having you. All right. And I'll be reaching out for a bracelet.
Okay, sounds good. Take care, Laura.
Take care.